Well, it's Tucker Carlson. I'm honored to be sitting in to host the Charlie Kirk Show today. I flew in from the East Coast last night and was thinking about what to do today for 2 hours. And there's all this very ugly drama swirling around the Republican Party, the right, the memory of Charlie Kirk. And I just thought, and I've got, of course, strong opinions. I have strong opinions about everything, and I've expressed them. But I thought I really need a break from that. And I don't think that any of it reflects who Charlie was fundamentally. Who was Charlie fundamentally? He was a Christian man, and Jesus was the center of his life. That was obvious to anyone who knew him. It emerged in conversation immediately when you talked to him. That's just a fact about Charlie. His life was about following Jesus, period. And so I think the best way to explain who he was is to spend the next 2 hours talking about Jesus and Charlie's relationship with him. And so I'm going to be really happy to do that. This will be the happiest conversation about Charlie Kirk, I hope, all week. And so, as I said, I'm hosting, but I have no idea how the show works. I literally don't know, though I've done it. But luckily, Andrew and Blake are here, who I know very well. I've actually worked with Blake for years in another life. We're both grateful to be gone from that. But Andrew is really going to be like running in and out. We have these things called breaks, and you've got commercials and all that.
Yeah, we got a show to run here.
Show to run.
But you know what?
It's just not suited for that.
But listen, we'll blow the breaks when we have to. So if you're watching on stream, if you're watching on Real America's Voice, if you're watching on a video platform, you'll probably be fine. We're just gonna have fun today.
Good. Well, with you in charge of the details, I know that will happen.
Correct.
And Blake, it's wonderful to see you. We talked on the phone the other day. I've been thinking about you every single day. So I hope you're holding up, and I'm grateful that you're here. So. Yeah, I want to talk about Charlie's relationship with Jesus, and I'm amazed. I have a whole list of thoughts or sound bites. Here, I asked for Charlie talking about God in public, and I'm just kind of amazed what came back. I mean, they're really...
It was a deluge.
Yeah, it was unbelievable, because there's really no one in public life who talked about Jesus more than Charlie Kirk. And now I'm revealing one of my ugly biases, but some of the people whose job it is to talk about Jesus are not, I don't think as credible and believable, I'm just being honest, as I think Charlie was. He really meant it. He wasn't being paid to say it. I think everything that he did, everything that he thought, the way he lived were all informed by his love of Jesus. And I don't think I'm overstating it. I said this to him recently when he was at my house in Maine. You remind me of Paul. Like, you never stop. I stop. I like to go fishing. I like to go bird hunting. I like to hang out, on Saturday morning in bed with my wife and BS with my wife and all that stuff. But Charlie just did not allow himself any of that. He was so driven, and you can see it now maybe as part of a larger plan where he never wasted a minute. He forced himself to get on the airplane and to do things that were really, really hard in a way that I've never done. I'll just admit it. And I think that was because he felt God had a plan for him, that he was on a mission. It wasn't just about getting somebody elected. It was about something bigger than that. Well, just ask you first, Andrew, and then Blake. Do you think I'm reading too much into it, or do you think that's right?
No, I totally agree. And I've had wave after wave of revelation of what we were actually doing. Yes. I was so in the weeds. We were so in the weeds that it was impossible to fully understand even what we were doing. But
exactly.
Charlie and I bonded at the very earliest days because we were both like really strong Christians, and that was such a central part of who we were. But we didn't talk about it all the time necessarily publicly. But as the years went on, we both knew that we had each other in that way. And there's 2 tweets that I've posted. I have realized in the days hence that he was a prophet, not a fortune teller like people think of prophecy.
No, exactly.
He was like a biblical prophet that would go into a nation and call it to repent. That's what he was doing. He was going to these campuses, and he was going on stage, and he was going on this show and the podcast, and he was calling a nation to repent. He went to London, and he called England to repent at Cambridge and Oxford. And they hurled insults at him. They mocked him. They jeered him, just like the biblical prophets. They wanted to stone him, and ultimately they killed him. And that is what Jesus said. He said, what did they do to the prophets? They killed him. And now the other revelation...
You're making me emotional again, because I know that what you're saying is true.
And the other revelation is specifically about these campus tours. We called them campus tours. They were tent revivals.
Yes.
complete with the tent, Tucker.
So I don't know why I didn't really see.
I
any
didn't
of
either.
this as it
you
was
say
happening.
that, and I just like to envision like George Whitefield, like being, it's just like
loved them.
Jesus was sent as a savior and must be accepted to be saved. Prove me wrong.
Yeah, I know. I know, but
Plymouth
it's so
field.
clear to me now. It's so clear
And me
to
too.
now.
I don't know. I don't know how I missed that. I don't know why I thought it was like political organizing or something, which on one level it was, but that's not, well, you guys were there the whole time. I mean, it was more than that.
It was. And it really, knowing him over the past almost 3 years, that was what I would always tell people who would ask about Charlie. And it's so funny where like they'd always just open like, is Charlie smart? And I'd be like, yes, but that's kind of besides the point.
Yes.
Like the amazing thing with him is not his IQ or like how many like facts he can know or something. What was amazing with him was his drive. The way I would say it, he was the highest agency person I had ever met in my life.
Yes.
He thought, if there is something I don't like, I have the power as an individual to change the world about that. Or at least if I don't take action, I have no excuse to complain about it. And he brought that to politics and organization, of course, but he especially brought it to the faith question. And he always wanted to talk about it. He loved talking about it in private. He loved talking about it in places where it was, arguably pointless. The last speech he kind of gave in public was, we were in Japan, and Japan is 1% Christian,
story.
maybe. Right. We were speaking to a party there that's, we're aligned with them because they're anti-immigration. They don't like globalism. We were talking to them about all that stuff. He was like, you should increase your birth rate. Don't rely on immigrants and all that.
But Japan is famously resistant to Christianity.
Yes. And I told him about that. But in Korea, we talked about Christianity,
Yes.
and there it was a Christian audience mostly. But he's like, is there somewhere I can work in the faith angle to this? Because, we're supposed to preach it everywhere we go. And so we talked about that, what could we do? And we found a spot late in the speech. And the very end of his speech, he was saying, look, guys, I want you to save your country, but in the end, you're going to have to believe in something transcendent for that to work. It's not just going to work on pragmatic grounds. And for me, and then he just, for me, it's because of my belief in the Almighty, my belief in Jesus Christ. And you're going to need to have something like that to be able to win. And, I think 2 people in the audience started clapping really, really energetically, and the rest kind of sat there very politely,
But
as
you
the
did get a
Japanese
couple
do.
people. Oh, the
Yes.
Japanese are wonderful people. But you're right. They're not open to that. But there were 2 who were.
Yeah, and maybe they were believers. I'm not sure, but I'm very glad he got to do that.
And
then
in Korea, though,
Yeah, I bet
now
they
Korea, totally different.
Very different story.
We have this clip. Why don't we just play it if it's okay,
Great.
Tucker?
Oh my gosh,
play
of
cut
course.
18.
All right.
That was 11 days ago, Tucker, and he's on stage, and in English, they asked him to come forward and pray and sing over Charlie, and they put their hands up and they started in English saying, "How great is our God? Sing with me, how great is our God?" And Charlie put his hand on his heart, and Mikey said when he got off stage, like he could see his eyes were misty. It meant so much to him.
Melbourne's one of the darkest cities really in the world. There are good things about Melbourne, but basically it's in enemy hands, and boy, do you feel it when you're there. And I was like, I got to go to church. So I go, of course, to the Anglican church, which is my denomination. It's now a museum filled with Chinese tourists. I was like, oh, this is the worst. I'm feeling despondent. I go next door to the Scottish church, the Presbyterian church. Beautiful, beautiful church, like in beyond. And there's no one in it except at the front. And it's like 100 yards away. It felt like there's this little group of people singing. And it's Koreans. And this Korean congregation of like 9 people has taken over the church, rented it on Sundays, because, of course, no whites are going to church, of course. And I just thought to myself, this was God's way of reassuring me that even though the world that I grew up in is gone and totally, everyone's fallen away and it hasn't worked at all. That Jesus still lives, but his name is spoken in other languages, and one of those is Korean. And there's something about watching Koreans worship that just it's my favorite thing ever.
I totally agree. They are absolute prayer warriors, but
Yes.
I just believe this, Tucker, and I have to say this, like in this moment, I believe God is unleashing a new revival.
Yes,
on this country, and Charlie is the spark that is igniting it.
completely agree.
And I don't even want to say it's his death; it's the start of his eternal life and his eternal glory, his immortality. And I believe that he is seated with God in heaven, and he's seated in glory. And I believe that there's a reason that Charlie and Erika would look at each other and say, our mission is to make heaven crowded. And I believe that is actually the real mission, and that is actually going to be happening right now. It's happening in our midst right now, and it's sweeping the country. And there was a story I just heard on the drive here this morning that they ran out of baptism space. They just kind of did an impromptu baptism space at one of my friend's churches, and so they went out in the parking lot and started dunking people in the fountain. Hundreds of them.
Protestants are fun.
I just love that. If I can just say a word, I mean, I don't get involved in the Protestant, Catholic, Orthodox thing because I'm just for Jesus. But if I could just stick up just for 1 second for my people, Protestants were real once. Like, they built this country. They did. I'm sorry. It's just it's a fact. And they really believed in God, and they were on the right path. They were amazing people. And I'm very aware that they've declined to the point where I make fun of them constantly, but there was something very, very real there. Very real. Sorry.
Well, the circuit riders in the.
I feel like I have to say that.
No. I mean, listen, and I'm somebody. Both Erika and I were cradle Catholics, right? We did the First Communion, and we did the Catechism, and the. Anyways, I went to Catholic high school. Even did you go to Catholic high school?
No, long story. Long
Well,
story.
I'll let you
involving
chime
the
in if you
Senate
want.
race in
But
2002.
the point
my
is,
parents moved me to public schools.
I ended up getting saved in college. Very, very, very non-denominational evangelical way to phrase it. I got saved in college, radically saved. So I had this Catholic background, but then I found myself in a non-denominational setting alone at a school in Seattle. Like the second least church city in the country.
Right.
And I ended up getting radically saved. And so, but I've never cared about the distinctions. I love both.
Yeah, I agree.
I might have petty, minor little theological differences.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. I love them both. I don't understand. I can't, because of my path here, I never cared.
Anyone who focuses on Jesus is my brother. That's how I feel, and I agree with you 100%. And if you it's a little bit like Twitter, actually. if you think about it too much, you end up hating everybody, and you miss the commonality between people. And the commonality between Christians is Jesus. Period. And if you think about, I'm mad about transubstantiation, or like the last pope was horrible,
Mariology,
which he was.
Yeah.
I'm so sad we didn't get to just have that full debate. We wanted to have just a straight, just for fun, let's debate Mary.
No, I'm not doing that.
Let's do it, Tucker. Next radio.
But we wanted to do it with Charlie, and now we can't.
I'm not doing that. And one of the things, I hope you guys live to your 50s because, and I'm sure you will, but because when you get there, you're like, wow, I've been wrong about so much. And you think that middle-aged people are wishy-washy, and low testosterone does account for some of that, just a fact. But part of it is just the recognition of how wrong you've been. And that is the Christian. Forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. It's like, first you meditate on how fallen you are, and then you realize you don't have a basis upon which to judge other people, actually, and you can forgive them. And that is the process that's prescribed in the Lord's Prayer. Of course, it's the center of Christianity, but it's also just like a human process. And you get there, and you realize, I'm mad about Mary. That's a fact, okay? But then I get older, and my wife's like, I was just saying the rosary, my very Protestant wife, and I love it. It brings me closer to Jesus. And I'm like, I'm not judging anymore.
I really want people to understand, Tucker, you and Charlie had such a unique and special bond and relationship. It was a deep friendship, and you both had each other's back in an
he
incredible
had my
way.
back.
You had his back,
Holy
too. I know
smokes.
those stories as well.
Yeah. And I promised I wouldn't get into any of that. But I will say, and I'm not going to, but I will say, because I want this to be about Jesus and his love for Jesus and what he did to spread the word of Jesus throughout the world. But I will just say this, that whenever I would come and do a gig for you guys, which was a lot because I really enjoyed it, and he was so kind to invite me and defend my being there. But I would always, he's the only person I did this with, I would always say, hey, you know, let's like meet in my hotel room or have a meal. Like, I loved talking to him. And it wasn't just to catch up on everything that's going on in the political world. He would always bring it back to God every single time. And it was so, there's no one around. Like, so he didn't need to be like, oh, yeah, I really love God. It was like just us. And he'd be talking about that.
And you would come to Phoenix and you would reach out to, it was like, I have so many memories of Charlie being like, I got to do dinner. Who are you doing dinner with? Oh, Tucker's in town. I got to meet up with him.
Always, always. And he was so intellectually curious and flexible. And I think that also grew out of his Christian faith. And I know that as I've gotten older, it's been one of the things I appreciate most about believing in God is like you can admit when you were wrong. You can change your views. Paul, who created a lot of the early church, was the chief persecutor of Christians. He was a freaking Pharisee. So like in our religion at its core is the fact that God can change people. And so you don't need to be brittle and afraid about admitting that, yeah, I was totally off base. And Charlie was so much like that. He was constantly thinking about, is this the right thing? Is that the right thing? Like, there's no one in public life who does that.
It's so easy for like religion, you know, for sometimes people use religion as an excuse for megalomania.
Yes.
And Charlie was so humble, genuinely humble.
Thank you for saying that.
We would have these moments.
Thank you for saying that.
And on this note, we would have these moments and I'd be like, can you freaking believe what's going on? You're on South Park or whatever.
All on God.
And he would say, stay humble, stay close to Jesus. That would be the type bet. We need to stay humble. We need to stay close to Jesus.
Really?
Yes.
This is in his private text to people that he works with.
Yeah. I have a story like this too, and I'm ashamed that I am the villain in this story. Basically, it was 2 weeks before he died, and I'll never forget it. There was just some annoyance that was, you know, in our way, and we needed to deal with something. I can't even remember what it was, and I just remember going, hey, you know, we could just tell him XYZ. In translation, we could just, you know, a little white lie and it'll go away. They'll understand. And I remember seeing the dots he was typing right away. Right away. We don't lie. It was a private message with me.
I love that.
And it wasn't, you don't lie. It's not, I don't lie. It was, Andrew, we here on the show in this turning point, we don't lie.
Well, and not only don't lie, I mean, without even getting into it, but like if you run a huge nonprofit, and DC is all about huge nonprofits, I know everyone who runs them, boy, there are temptations, and there was never any of that here, ever. And Charlie and I talked about that a lot. Like, here are the pitfalls in a man's life. Here's how people get ensnared. It happened to David. I mean, we know this is a thing. He was so, and again, I just had this conversation with him right before he died because I'm very focused on it because I've seen so many people destroy themselves. And it's clearly like Satan acting on them. Fact, sorry. And he was a narrow path walker. And I just have to say that because most aren't. Sorry.
He would run home to be with Erika.
Yes.
If he couldn't.
Yes.
If Erika was on the road, he'd be like, "Are we done here? Okay." Like a donor dinner or something. He would, you know, after our events at night, he would do kind of like a little circuit to all the dinners, and he couldn't wait. He's like, "Okay," and I'd be like, "I got to talk to you about one other thing, Charlie. Hold on, 1 second. He's like, "Sorry, I'll talk to you about it in the morning. I got to see Erika. Bye." It was just
that is the key.
I love to tell people this because sometimes people who didn't watch Charlie a lot would sometimes just think, oh, he's like a young influencer. So people would ask me, they'd be like, Blake, do you ever hang out with Charlie? And what I'd always say is, I don't think Charlie has ever hung out in his entire life. He was always on his mission, or he was with his family.
You know what?
It was 100% all the time.
That being said, some of the best memories that I have are the plane flights across country.
Yeah.
Because
and that's the only time he can hang out.
It was amazing.
He's trapped in a tube.
And by the way, and I think that gave him the freedom to kind of just go, I'm hanging out. And I mean, if you had to add them up, I've got hundreds of these hours, and they are some of the most amazing because he was so funny and so curious and so he did, but it was like you had to get him in this mode where you literally trapped him on a plane and he couldn't get out and he was stuck there.
But what is that? I mean, most people sort of fritter away their entire lives hanging out, and I'm definitely one of them. I'm like an Arab man in the souk. I like to sit around, hitting the water pipe, playing backgammon, drinking little cups of coffee, talking about women. Like, I've spent a lot of my life doing that. That's why I love Trump so much. He likes that too. But Charlie had like this mission.
So my theory on that, Tucker, is I think in order for this whole God plan to work in Charlie's life, he had to impress in him almost subconsciously, hardwire it, whatever it was. He was going to maximize the juice, the output, and Charlie disciplined his body. He didn't put alcohol into his body. He didn't put drugs into his body. He didn't put anything into his body that he thought was going to slow him down or reduce his productivity. He was obsessed with biohacking. He was like, I thought it was just this weird quirk because I'm thinking, Charlie, you're going to be alive because you're younger than me. You're going to be alive when I'm gone. Like, chill out, relax, have some fun. But somehow he knew there wasn't a moment to waste. And
Exactly.
I'm finding these things, Tucker,
right.
that he found time to do. Like, Erika's telling me he somehow found time to journal obsessively. And she never
Wrote her
looked
a
at
weekly
the journals.
note every single week.
Wrote her a weekly note on Saturday, every Saturday. He read books, he skimmed books, he got Blake to read them. He found ways to get the team to distill information so he could absorb it. And he would do walks with books on tape. He managed to squeeze so much life into such a short period of time. And I have to believe it was God impressing and blessing him with this divine ability to maximize his output.
I love that. And I had many conversations with him on this topic also about like physical health. I'm a pizza guy, so okay, yeah, physical health. I quit smoking cigarettes at 45. Like I feel very virtuous.
It turns out you say he didn't want to put anything in his body that would hinder him, and it turns out the list of things that hinder you is all foods except like cabbage, grilled chicken, hot sauce.
But that's basically what
avocado.
I mean. He was the fittest guy, but it was for a reason. So how much time do we have in this segment left?
We're going to welcome back radio in 3 minutes and 20 seconds. Then we have a nice 13 minutes.
Okay, so I want to, when we get to the 13, I want to tell the Blake story. Blake Neff, who's sitting right here.
Great story.
And it's just a story that just explains who he really was. And there's so much that goes on in Washington and political world that's so treacherous and cruel and anti-human. And Charlie just stood against all of that, not simply in public, but in private. And I had a window into one of the amazing stories of bravery and forgiveness. It's just an incredible story, and it's about you. Again, it makes me emotional thinking about it. But anyway, I don't think it's ever really been told. Sorry to make you emotional.
It's all right.
It's an
It's all
amazing
right.
story.
You know what
might get
I love
emotional.
about this Blake story too, because I don't want to. I'm not going to ruin the punchline here, but I would just say, one of the strongest testaments to Charlie is the fact that this guy's a tough judge, and I know when he.
Oh, I know. He worked for me.
And when he first started working with us, I could tell that he was a little unsure. You know, you probably had the questions. Charlie spoke the language of the people, and you're a Dartmouth kid that's a total egghead nerd. You know, like beautiful mind kind of person. But Charlie would cut through all that, and he would speak right to the people and cut people's hearts in two and make them choose the side they were going to go on. And that was not the language of Blake Neff, but we needed a Blake Neff, and I knew we needed a Blake Neff. And there was this moment where, I forget why, but you took this moment, and I remember being really touched by it, and you paid Charlie a tremendous compliment, and I knew it was like 2 years after the fact, and it was Charlie texted me like directly. He goes, "Whoa, did you hear Blake?" Like, because it really meant the
compliment
world to
from
him that
Blake?
he had won your respect, and it really meant the world to him.
Yeah, South Dakota Germans aren't big on compliments. But I do think if you get one from Blake, it's earned. I do think the question that people had about Charlie, the question I got most often, and people came to me a lot about Charlie, like, what is this? Because they knew that I knew him and that I was friends with him. But really the core question everyone wanted answered was, is this guy for real? Is this real? Because like nothing in our world's real. It's all fake, actually. And I hate to say it, but it's true. A lot of preachers are very fake. And I would always say, amazingly, it's 100% real. It's totally real. And I remember talking to you about that. I mean, everyone like, what is this exactly? And you concluded early. I remember when you told me, no, it's totally real. That's incredible. You really have to have lived in our world for a while to know how wild that is, because most people are just like, yeah, of course it's real. Not in political world. Is that fair?
Very fair, very fair. Yeah. And he's like the realest guy to ever live, practically.
I know. Oh, it makes me sad he's gone. I wish I had said this in public before he left, because I said it many times in private. I will say that to many people. Who is this guy? Is this real? Like, what is this? And I would always say, man, if you had dinner with him, you would know it's real.
This is really the Tucker day, and I feel awkward even taking us in and out of breaks. But Tucker,
I don't want to do it.
I don't. You kidding? I'm doing this out of service to my nation and to my friend Tucker. So yeah, the floor is yours. I know where you're going, but
this is a Blake Neff story. Okay, so this is a story that obviously I was in the middle of it, and I've talked to a lot of people just this week about it. I don't think it's ever been told in public. I'm going to give the outline and then just turn it over to Blake to correct me and to fill in the details. But here's the story. So Blake worked for me at Fox News for years, probably more closely than anybody, like intimately at Fox, and I love Blake. And Blake is obviously an unusual person, but just a wonderful person and a really deeply decent person.
I mean, it's true.
And obviously, yeah, but Blake's weird, but like Blake is the best. And people who love Blake really love Blake. And there's a little group of people who, we all know each other. We all talk about Blake. So Blake got caught up right at the height of all this insanity, true insanity called cancel culture, but it was more than that. It was like French Revolution stuff. And someone Blake is naughty, Blake is a racist. Well, actually, as I would always say, Blake is actually not a racist. And I would admit it, he's not. He's a Christian who believes that God created everybody. So he's actually not a racist, but Fox overreacted, of course, and he left, and then Fox denounced him. They tried to get me to denounce him. Suzanne Scott tried to make me denounce Blake, and I refused. Something I'm proud of, but whatever. It was just awful. It was the saddest moment in the 15 years that I spent there. And then Blake's unemployed and unemployable. And I get this, and I feel terrible, and I feel like I've got a moral obligation to help Blake. But who's going to hire Blake? Because he's like, in the New York Times, he's like a bad person when actually he's a great person. Charlie Kirk calls me. He's like, I'm thinking about hiring Blake. I was like, God bless you, Charlie. What's he like? I said, well, Blake's very eccentric. Like, no kidding. He's the only person who ever lost weight eating junk food. Like, he's a really unusual person. Like, we talk about Blake all day long. But he's a wonderful person, and he's incredibly talented. No one disputes that, and I think you should do it. He does. Charlie and I talk about it. Then Blake and I talk about it. We're having these like conversations behind the scenes about each other. And not only does Charlie hire Blake, he puts makes me emotional. He puts Blake on the air as if to say, I know this man. He is a good man. You will judge me for doing this. I'm doing it anyway because it's the right thing to do. And then, of course, it becomes this whole thing where Blake is like a true asset to him. But when he first did it, it was like, no, I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do. This is the last thing I'll say before turning over to Blake. I've been in this business my whole life. Nobody does that. Nobody does that. Everyone's like, oh, I'm for free speech or whatever, until it hurts me. At which point, like, sorry, pal, good luck. But Charlie pivoted against that in a way that exposed him and his group, Turning Point, to ridicule and risk, and he did it anyway. And all week I've been talking to people about this, like, that was the acid test. Those of us in this business know how brave that was. It was the bravest thing. Anyway, sorry, Blake.
I remember talking to you about that because I actually was weighing another employment option, and I was going, as you said, I was like, I joined.
Which I think you maybe were behind that one too.
Yeah, I was desperate to get
was
this
another
man a
option,
job.
and I remember I won't say what it was for, but we were talking about it, and I think the one that you really pointed out that was really important. He's like, Blake, I think the most important thing, like, Charlie is for real a sincere Christian.
Yes,
and I think you're going to want to work for someone who is a for real, sincere, deeply believing Christian.
Yes.
And, because then you'll disagree on a lot of things, but you will align on really important things.
Yes.
And I think that was what carried the day with me. And I'm very glad it did. And, at the time, as you said, it was like, at the time I came in, he was just a very different person.
Yes.
And it was over time realizing all the ways that, as you say, it's like you have to really see it. You're like, is this for real?
Yeah,
like,
you and I talked about this.
What is it? Is this going to work? It would also have that where you're like, this can't possibly work, right? And it does. And it does because he's so completely, intently sincere and fully all in on it. And I think that's what like amazed young people. Like, when you go to these campus events and, I think there's a lot of, you'll see these people online who are like very like performatively trad or Christian or whatever because it like owns the libs or whatever.
Yeah,
and then,
exactly.
But Charlie is just like, no, I like 100% believe in this.
Well,
like,
and
because I believe it is true and because it is important, and I want everyone else to believe in it because it is true, and I think it is the most important decision they will ever make. And it would always shine through in what he was doing and how he behaved, that he really believed that. And
I mean, I think, and you know this because you were at some of the campus stops, I was at some of the campus stops, 90% of the interactions as he got older, right? The brand of Charlie was almost cemented, in 2018, where he was much younger and he was like a peer to the kids on college, and he would say, Charlie Kirk destroys the libs or whatever. And that was just titling. It wasn't actually in Charlie's heart, but Charlie, by the way, didn't determine the titles. People
he didn't
behind
want
the
to
scenes.
destroy anybody.
No, behind the scenes. That's a social media team that's doing the titling. That wasn't Charlie picking the title. Anyways, but the point is, as he got older, he transitioned to a much more big brother, and people started observing like this incredible Herculean patience that he would exhibit in these interactions with sometimes bad faith people, but sometimes people that just had bad ideas. And 90%, if you went and sat there and watched the entire 3-hour Prove Me Wrong, 90% of it is him being kind and gentle and thought-provoking and working through whatever was the lie that was stuck in this kid's head, or sometimes professors, but he would work with them through it and use the Socratic method to draw out the truth. And it was a beautiful thing. And, he doesn't get nearly enough credit for that because the Charlie Destroys the Libs clip goes mega viral, right?
I couldn't agree with you more. I have to say, when all that happened to you, I just cannot say how because we've talked about it many times, but that was like one of the most painful things that's ever happened to me in my life. Because we have such a tight staff and the same staff. Like I don't have new people working for me really ever, and I don't care to. So that was really, really painful.
Go ahead.
I just wanted you to have health insurance. My expectations for you were so low because you had been so mistreated and maligned and slandered. And it's just so hard to come back from that. The fact that he put you on the air is
possibly a mistake.
Why? It was not a mistake, but that is so wild.
So I have an insight into that piece of the story because I was aware of this other job opportunity, and I see it now all as like God's plan. And I was working on kind of a panel show idea, but I didn't have it was just like a nugget of an idea. It was back in my head. And I remember kind of just intuiting that in order to like restore this man that had been so wronged by Oliver Darcy or whatever in CNN, these scumbags, I thought,
I need to forgive Oliver Darcy. Thank you for reminding me. As we forgive those who trespass against us, he needs to be my daily rotation.
So, but and by the way, I ended up in that moment, when we were talking with Blake at the beginning, I looked back at your monologue from that night. Maybe it wasn't your monologue, maybe it was the final segment, but you said you really were defiant, and it was beautifully done because you were back at you were part of something and only had so much control at that moment, right? And so
they were bullying me. Suzanne Scott got me. I was in the parking lot of a place I was in Bozeman, Montana fishing, and she called me, and I went outside to do my pre-show bathroom break, always outside if I can do it. And she called me and she said, you need to say what he said was wrong. And I said, I'm not doing that, period. And you can fire me and the show's live in 10 minutes. I'm not doing that. And she goes, well, I guess I can't make you. And until the day she fired me, she never really talked to me after that.
Yeah, I'm not trying to get into any of that, but I do believe that.
I want to get into it. It was horrible what they did to him.
I'm just saying. I don't know where to go with it. I will say, Tucker, this is awkward for me.
Sorry.
Sorry. No, I would just say that I think this moment has profoundly changed all of us, including people like Suzanne, and I just want to say briefly, for what it's worth, she's been exceedingly wonderful
I shouldn't
and kind.
say that. And we all change, and I've done crappy things, a lot of crappy things in my life, so I shouldn't be judgy.
But to your point, your hands were tied in that moment, and you defiantly said, I remember you said, I just want everybody to know that you are gloating over a young man's life being ruined, and shame on you. You basically, I'll never forget that, and I remember thinking, okay, Like if Tucker's got his back in this moment, this guy's pretty great.
He's the best.
Yeah, and he's been the best. And I love having
Boy,
Blake on our
they came
team.
out of nowhere, man. I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that as long as I live. But anyway, the point is, whatever. And I shouldn't even have brought
Well,
up
we put him
the
on
Fox
air.
thing. Exactly.
And by the way, and now look at this. This show is going on. Erika Kirk has demanded that the show goes on, and we're going to figure out the details. And Blake is going to be critical to that. And if we hadn't have created this roster, this thought crime crew that we do on Thursdays, I don't know what we would do.
But it takes the bravery of an individual to get there. So like everything is fine now and Blake can do whatever he wants and people know who he is because they get to see him and they can make their own judgments about him. But when Charlie made that decision, and he's the one who would have been blamed if it had gone wrong, people didn't know who Blake was apart from what they read in the New York Times. Slander devised by CNN and Oliver Darcy. That's a fact. And not helped by a lot of other people who I shouldn't be attacking. You're right. Sorry about that. But he's the one who allowed Blake's life to continue. And I felt it so strong because that's my world. Like, I know what that is. And all these people are like, well, you can't put him on air. Like, he did bad things. I heard that. And Charlie was like, he was willing to stand up to them and say, no, that's not true. Like, most people are not going to do that. No one will do that. And,
well, and I remember the nasty articles. There was a few. And Charlie would just write back, LOL.
So that's courage. In case you're wondering what courage is, that's actual courage. And you know that it is because it's so rare. Nobody does that. If people do that, who are they? I live in this world. Like, I know every single person hosting every single show, and they don't do that. And he did that. And so that's what actual courage is. Courage is standing up for what is true in the service of other people, in the service of showing love to other human beings. That's the commission that we get from Jesus, period. And he actually did that at great risk to himself. And anyway, I've had like 50 text exchanges about this all week. Come up. Anyway, bless you, Blake, for being
thank you.
at the
Bless
center
you.
of that.
Thanks for standing with us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Genuinely. Can I say something that you told me that the night of that blew my mind?
Go for it. Go for it.
So
We're bringing Blake to the brink here.
We were in Provo the night of, and it was like we were all shell shocked. And Blake was there with them when it happened, and we filter in late at night into this little like corner of the restaurant, the hotel in Salt Lake City, and I don't know how it came up, but Blake says I will never forget it. He said, Charlie gave me my life back.
Yep.
And I knew exactly what he meant. And now I think the audience does too.
Amen.
Our dear friend's seat remains open with the golden EIB microphone in front of it, his hero rush. It's pretty amazing. And so Tucker, this is the Tucker show for Charlie. And so I think it's important that I get to ask you a question.
Okay.
When did you meet Charlie? And tell us about how your relationship with Charlie grew, because I think it's fascinating.
So I met Charlie when he was a teenager. He was connected to, funded by a close friend of ours called Foster Freeze, who's a wonderful man from Wilmington, Delaware, well, really from Wisconsin, but lived in Wilmington and then Jackson, Wyoming. And was an investor in a company that we had, and more important, like an actual friend, really the only investor I've ever had in anything. And a very enthusiastic Christian man, and the kind of person who was just a collector of people. I met this person, he was so enthusiastic, and almost everybody around him was just wonderful. But because he was so rich and so generous, he did collect. There were phonies in the orbit, because there always are when someone's rich, right? And so he tells me at dinner about this kid he's met. He's only 18. He's not going to college. I've always been opposed to college my whole life. I tried to convince all my kids not to go. I mean, I really meant it. And so he's like, you would love this guy. He's not going to college. And I was like, man, I love that, because I really am opposed, and I mean it. And I'm like, he sounds great. And he's like, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I'm thinking, oh, man, some fast-talking kid it's like throwing back Reagan quotes or something at poor Foster, who was in his 70s and like late 60s, and he doesn't know. And I really assumed that Charlie was just some predator, and I didn't like it at all. And of course, there's the bias against young people. I mean, Charlie's literally the age of one of my children. So like, and I felt he's probably just totally conventional, telling old people what they want to hear, or sucking up to the donors, whatever. So I meet him. I thought he was smart as hell, but I was very skeptical. Then I have this, he calls me, would you do an event? Sure. I was going to be in the state anyway, so I do it. And we have this kind of sort of debate, not really a debate. Well, what actually happened was I was going to give a speech, and I got there, and we were backstage. He's like, well, actually, let's just do a Q&A. And I was like, I don't know, son. I don't think you want to do that with me because I'm kind of a jerk. Which I am in those settings, right? So he's like, no, I want to. We can, it's okay to have a debate. I was like, I don't know, man. Like, I disagree with your views on economics and foreign policy, and I'm pretty hot on these topics. So I'm just letting you know that. Oh, no problem at all. So we end up having this kind of intense thing, and I'm like passionately opposed to marijuana and drugs. I'm just having used a lot of drugs as a child. Like, I'm very opposed to drugs. Charlie never used any drugs in his whole life. And he was, at the time, he was kind of libertarian on the subject. And I remember saying, everyone in the crowd who's for weed, like, you think you're so cool, but actually it's a control device designed to make you passive and accepting of this system that's destroying you. And people kind of booed me or whatever, but Charlie looked at me like, I think that may be right. And it was that issue. It was weed of all issues. It's not my top issue, but I do feel it really strongly. I hate marijuana, okay? And I know it's really cool, but no, it's like fully corporate, actually. And it's wrecking Americans, especially boys.
It's wrecking the parking lot of the grocery store nearby.
It makes me feel like getting my gun. Like, I really feel that way about it. Sorry, I shouldn't say that, but I really am mad about it. And Charlie grooved with that. And that moment set off this like conversation. So I was in Arizona for something. He's like, let's go to lunch, let's go to dinner. And we started having all these really intense conversations. I started putting him on Fox, and his views were changing. And mine were too, by the way. It's not like I converted him. It's like I had been all kinds of embarrassing things during the scope of my long life. A libertarian, a self-described neocon. Can you imagine? I mean, I'll admit it. I like got mad at Alex Jones for asking questions about 9/11. What? Like, I was like a horrible person or a very close-minded person. I was totally wrong about everything. And so I didn't judge. Like, you should change your mind as the evidence changes. The things you thought were going to work didn't. An honest man asks himself why they didn't work and what might work. Like, that's the process of adulthood. And Charlie, young people are very inflexible about what they believe, I have found. And I have a lot of young people. I have a lot of children. He was one of the only young people I've ever met who was like, oh yeah, I think I was wrong. And only belief in Jesus allows you to say that, because you know that you're not judged. You know that honesty is the ticket, and that if you pursue an honest path, you'll be okay. And you don't need the adulation from the crowd. You don't need the love of strangers to feel good about yourself, because you know that you are loved. It gives you true freedom. And he had that. Charlie had no problem at all getting up and being like, I was a neocon. And of course, with me, he didn't, because he knew that I was too. I'm like cheering on the Iraq War, which I did. Like, I literally did that. And I'm ashamed of it, but I'm also proud to admit it, because I think that it's important to let people know that you can admit being wrong. It's okay. It's all right. We're people. We're not gods. You can be wrong.
I want you to know, Tucker, that must have gone deep, because Blake can attest of all the fringe issues that he knew he was on the unpopular side. He was very, very vehemently against weed.
No way.
Oh, he went hard on it.
Yes.
No, I think you really got at it where, one, he was totally unafraid of being in a huge minority on an issue and being frank about it. People would ask, and he'd be like, they'd ask him about like abortion, and he'd be like, look, my position on that is a tiny minority in the United States, and I'm going to keep trying anyway. And he'd say that on, gay marriage, where the polls would say, a big majority support it and all of that. And at the same time, yeah, the zero shame about if he had to change his views. You see that so often with politicians. Well, actually, that was a different situation. I voted that way because, it wasn't like that. And he'll just be like, oh, no, I was wrong. I hadn't thought about this.
But you can't be controlled. If you will, so this is how the media control politicians. They find some clip if the politician's saying something different 10 years ago. It's like, well, it was a different country 10 years ago.
He would do that. We would see these clips, these really they'd be like, look here's Charlie defending, this issue. And I would be like, Charlie, they dug up that old clip. And he goes, oh yeah, that was back when I was a cuck.
100%.
And,
but there's no shame in that. And Charlie's example of admitting the truth about himself in public is the most edifying and important thing you can ever do, because it shows people You can take the leash off and you can live in freedom because you know you're loved. You can tell the truth. We're all going to die anyway. This is the deepest truth. And your job is to be honest and to be loving to other people. Okay, that's your job. Only belief in God allows that. And once you do it, it's like, it's not only fine, it's great. It's actual liberation.
You said that, I remember, at the first AmFest when you came back. So you had the debate, and then you came back.
The unplanned debate.
Oh, I remember feeling so honored that you came back. It was our first AmFest, and we really needed like somebody of your caliber and your I'm going to say it, your fame, your the weight that you held in the movement, especially. I mean, it was an honor to us to have you there. And you
I was so excited.
You came out the first night, and you just said, "Let me say a few words about Charlie. He's willing to change his mind. He's willing to adapt." And I knew that was your subtle nod to people who might have judged you. Maybe you weren't even thinking that, but it felt like it was at least saying, like, "Listen, I know some of you think Charlie's a certain way. Let me tell you, from that 2017 or whatever 18 debate to now, I think it was 2021. Like a couple years had gone by since we'd had you back." And then you've been back ever since.
But it's so important. I just can't say it enough to be honest about yourself. It's very easy to be honest about everybody else. Oh, you're fat. I don't like your dress. Like, that's super easy. It's very hard to be honest about yourself. Like, I'm fat. I'm wearing an ugly dress. Like, no one wants to admit that. But once you do, the fetters are off and you are so free. And Charlie just lived that. I feel like that's almost one of the most important things, is to admit the truth about yourself. And then no one can control you. What can you say about me that I won't readily concede about myself? Like, nothing. And then what are you going to do to me? Nothing. Oh, it's amazing.
I read that poem a week ago about Charlie, and I always think about that other one. It's a much more famous one, If, by Rudyard Kipling.
Yes.
And it really does just perfectly describe Charlie. If you can, speak with kings but not lose the common touch.
Exactly.
And the one that ends the poem, which you don't hear quoted as much. If you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds distance run or something like that. I might be getting that wrong. But he really did encapsulate everything of that poem about what it is to be a true man, to be a true adult, to be a heroic figure. I don't know.
Yeah, you want me to read it?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Okay. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you.
Yeah.
If you can trust yourselves when all men doubt you.
Exactly.
Yourself. But make allowances for their doubting too. If you can wait and not be tired by waiting or being lied about, don't deal in lies. Or, being hated, don't give way to hating. And yet don't look too good, nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same.
Exactly.
If you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken, and to stoop and build them up with worn-out tools. If you can make one heap of all your winnings, and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at your beginnings, and never breathe a word about your loss. If you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after you are gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you, except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings, nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much. If you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son.
It's incredible. And the line that jumps out to me, which is the truest, and everyone, I think, understands it at some point, if you can treat triumph and disasters, those two imposters, the same. They are imposters, actually. because I'm not trying to leech the meaning from the human experience. It is meaningful, but it's not the real point, actually. And there is a sense in which this is.
It just stands out to me how many of those things we just
How
referenced in
many?
the past
That-
hour.
yeah,
you
and
know,
I bet it-
being lied about. Don't deal in lies.
That's the one thing that I kept thinking about. If you can wait and not be tired, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating. And
But
how many
winning is the
times-
real trap. Winning is the trap. That's where men destroy themselves. That was he and I talked about that recently all the time.
Well, yeah, but
winning is when you decide that you're God. That's the David moment for most men. Surviving triumph is the real trick, and so few can do it, and he could. I think.
it's a beautiful. Thank you for bringing that. Actually, Blake has brought 2 poems to us this week that.
I am the egghead.
I mean that one about from World War I. What was the name of that poem?
For the Fallen.
For the Fallen.
Blake
And
can read poetry in a very heterosexual way, which is amazing.
Are you saying that I just did it in a non?
No. That was so straight. It was unbelievable. I'm just saying, you don't meet a lot of guys who are like, I want to
never
share
been
some
accused.
poetry with you.
I've never been accused. I have a unblemished record of heterosexuality. And it's funny. I'm stealing that line from Charlie Kirk. He would always say, I have an unblemished record of heterosexuality. I'm Andrew Colvett, the executive producer of this show. I'm joined by Blake Neff, another producer on the show, and of course, the wonderful, the great, the legendary, and Tucker, you don't get enough credit for something. I should have finished it. The Tucker Carlson. But you don't get enough credit for something. I just want people to understand that Tucker, I've seen you backstage, I don't know, more times than I can count now, and you are the exact same with the guy who's taking out the trash as our PAs and our assistants and the people in between as you are with Charlie or me or Blake. You are the exact same human, and I really want everybody to know that about you, because you wouldn't say it about yourself. You treat everybody like I can't tell you how many times that has occurred to me, because I'll be needing to drag you somewhere where we need you to go, but you're deep into a conversation in the corner with the assistant. That I don't even know that I necessarily knew the name of this, because we have so many employees around it. And you would just be engrossed in this deep conversation, and I would feel bad, oh, we got to grab Tucker. He's got to go on stage in 5 minutes or something. And I love that about you, man. And I just want the world to know
Well,
that.
thank you. No, I mean, I love people, and God created everyone. But it's also true that I grew up in rich people world back when it was an egalitarian world. It's one of the main changes in my country in my lifetime, is that rich people are not egalitarian anymore. But I grew up, in an affluent family around rich people, and the housekeeper comes to Thanksgiving dinner. Period. And that's a WASP thing. I'm just going to say it out loud. That's a WASP thing, and that's gone. But we felt that very, very strongly, and I just think that's right. And
You know what? It's not gone, because we still believe it. And you still believe it. You
I
model
really believe it. I really believe. I'll just say one thing. Everyone hates the Wasps, and I beat up on them constantly. But in the club that I spent my life at, I don't even know if they're clubs anymore, but the only thing you could do to get booted from the club was to be rude to the staff, period. You could be drunk. They're always drunk, of course. You could be, whatever. You could say anything. But if you were rude to a waiter, you were gone. I mean, they wouldn't even have a hearing about it, because so deep was the culture on that question. It's that we are all, underneath it all, the same. We were all created by God. We have different aptitudes or language. We're very different in a lot of ways, but fundamentally, we're all going to stand alone before God. And that was the idea that spawned the Democratic Republic that we grew up in anyway. That's the core idea of America that is never articulated anymore. We didn't have fast track at Disney World when I was growing up. And I still feel that way, and I'm married to a chick who really feels that way. I mean, really feels. You get married in my family, and the guy who cuts her grass is coming to your wedding, whether you like it or not. That's the rule in my house.
I love that.
I'm not saying that to make myself sound
No.
virtuous. It's just that is something that we have lost, and we have to fight to regain that. And all these little fake aristocrats flying around in their planes. It's one of the reasons I really am upset with them, is because they've forgotten that specific thing.
Charlie wanted better elites. And
Yes.
and I mean, you model it, and it's not gone because we're talking about it right now, and maybe we can bring it back. In the spirit of actually doing a show, we have
One of my obsessions.
I have this great clip that I can't wait to share with everybody, but we're going to bring in Frank Turek, who crosstalk. He was with Charlie on the day. Charlie, he would go to Frank with ideas of apologetics and how to argue for the faith and contend for the faith in the public square. So, Frank, welcome to the Charlie Kirk Show with Tucker Carlson, the great Tucker Carlson, with us.
Hey, Charlie.
Hey, I just want to piggyback on something Tucker just said. The only worldview that agrees with what Tucker just said is Christianity. You know, in Hinduism, there's a caste system. In Islam, if you're not a Muslim, you're a second-class citizen. In the secular world, there's no way to ground these moral values and the moral worth that every individual has. The only worldview that does that is Christianity. And that was the worldview that Charlie and everybody here at this table right now wants to demonstrate is true and try and persuade young people to follow.
I love that you said that. I think that is indisputably true. I think it's provable. I mean, you know, the founding documents still exist. We know what the people who wrote them were thinking, and they were informed by a culture that is a product of Christian civilization, period. Western civilization is Christian civilization. And I'm not against other religions, by the way. I don't follow them, but I'm not mad at them. I'm just going to want to say that. I'm not. I know a lot of great people who are of different faiths, but Christianity is unique in that it's true. And it's unique in that it believes that every person is at least potentially chosen by God. Every person. And the whole New Testament is that story, by the way. And so Christians feel that deeply. The cultures that they create reflect it. And I grieve its passing, and I pray for its return to our country.
Well, ironically, Tucker, Charlie's martyrdom might be the turning point to bring it back. I don't know. Well, you do know because you're seeing what's going on at TPUSA right now.
Yes.
How many people want to start TPUSA chapters? What are we up to now, Andrew? Is it 62,000, something like that?
Yeah, it's growing by the minute, so it's probably, let's just say, approximately 65,000.
Whoa.
We had 2,000 before that. I mean, I'm seeing people online on some YouTube videos that have to do with Charlie, some of my own YouTube videos. They're all over the world. There's people in Denmark going, you know, I was an atheist, and because of Charlie Kirk, I'm a Christian now. Australia, same thing. London, same thing. This isn't just in America. This is happening all over the world. And so I want to commend every one of you for advancing the cause that Charlie was so near and dear to Charlie's heart in a time of mourning. It's got to be so difficult, Andrew and Blake especially, to continue on. But Charlie would want it. And that's why we're all here right now.
Well, and Frank, bless you. I know you've had to deal with the conspiracy theories and why'd you touch your hat at this time? Because, that wretched video. I mean, but bless you, brother. I just want to be a character reference for you. And Charlie loved you so much. You were always there for Charlie. And I know how much he leaned on you for apologetics and for thinking through these deep issues, around when he was on Bill Maher recently. And, you've meant so much to him, and your work at Cross Examine. Like, you are a dear brother and a dear friend, and some of that garbage, like, I don't even pay it any heed, but I know you you were there the day that it happened. I know this has been terrible for you too, and you've had to deal with all this garbage, but, God bless you. And I'm sorry that has been something in your experience.
Thanks, brother. I mean, that actually hasn't bothered me all that much, to tell you the truth. I just think it's so colossally stupid that if somebody wanted to shoot somebody, they need a guy standing 25 feet from them to signal, hey, get him. He's the guy. I mean, it makes absolutely no sense at all. So it was just a terrible day, but we all did the best we could to try and help and save Charlie. And then once we couldn't, all we could do was take Erika's lead and your lead, Andrew, and Mikey's lead, because you were all there, to march forward and take his legacy to new levels. And Lord willing, that's what's going to happen.
Well, Frank, you're going to be a key part of that. And, I joke with Erika. I'm like, Erika, he left us all the keys. He had all the people that we needed, all the reference points, all the true allies, not the snakes, not the grifters, the true people. And you are a true man, and you have great character, and you have great heart, and you've been a great friend to Charlie and to us. So,
thank you, brother. As you
wish
have
I could
to
say
me,
it 1,000 times over.
Thank you, but let's just do it whatever we can to advance this legacy now.
And that you mentioned it, Erika, and me and Tucker were just talking. We want to talk about Erika a little bit here.
Yeah.
And so we have to go to a radio break, but we're gonna keep going for the stream, and so hang right there with us. The great Tucker Carlson, Charlie's dear friend, is with us, and we're so honored.
There've been reference. I know that a lot of stuff going on online, I've checked out, actually. Just want to say that because it's too upsetting to me. I know it's extremely upsetting for you guys since you're way more in the middle of it than I am. But obviously you need a fair, impartial, well-explained investigation that assures everyone the rule of law lives in the United States. I think it's essential, and I hope that we get it. I think we're going to have to push for it. We should push for it. But as to what happened, again, totally fair in my view to ask sincere questions. But I think it's important to remember the big picture, which is whatever happened, it was a species of the same phenomenon, which was the fight of evil against good. And his murder was an attempt to extinguish the light, period. And it didn't work. Like that's the main thing to know. There are lots of things I want to know. And again, we have a civil system that has to go through a process in order for this government to continue, or any government. Yes. It has to be transparent and motivated by good faith, and it has to try to affect justice. That's a key, and I don't think we should blow past it. However, again, big picture, this is light versus dark, and you feel the darkness all around us. It comes in many different forms and many different guises. These are disguises, okay? But what it really is the age-old, it's the Lord of the earth. It's Satan. Sorry to say that. It is. Deliver us from the evil one, I think is the actual translation in the Lord's Prayer. And the evil one is all around us. But Charlie's murder is a reminder that we are surrounded by God and God's protection and God's love. And that is so obvious. The light has not only not been extinguished, it's glowing brighter. I hate like dumb metaphors like that, except this one is totally real. And so we should, or I speak for myself, I'm going to focus on that. I'm going to focus on the big picture while demanding a precise accounting. That is legitimate. But I'm not going to get so caught up in that stuff that I miss the true message, which is forces of darkness tried to extinguish the light, and not only did they fail, their effort was counterproductive. That is the truth.
Frank, I was just sorry. I was in sort of wrapped by what you were saying.
Sorry, I felt that. I felt it coming up. I couldn't keep it down.
It was beautiful. I was looking for somebody else to respond here quickly.
Well, let me mention something related to that. Our mutual friend James Lindsay had a text exchange with Charlie. In fact, he sent it to me the other night because I was speaking at a university here in North Carolina on Wednesday night about Charlie. And I related this story, and let me just read you what James sent to Charlie and what Charlie sent back. Very astute response by Charlie. James said, and this is August 24th, 2023, communism is by far the best evidence in support of Satan's existence. Charlie writes back, 100%. And then the next text he writes back, if there is a Satan, then there is a God. And James writes back, that would follow. So evil actually shows that God does exist, not that he doesn't, because there'd be no such thing as evil unless there was good, and there'd be no such thing as good unless God existed, because in any objective sense, the only way you can define good is God's nature. Otherwise, everything's a matter of opinion. You couldn't say murder was really objectively wrong unless there's a standard of objectively right that we're all obligated to obey. And what we mean by that is God's nature. And as Tucker pointed out earlier, our founders understood that. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men were created and endowed by their government. No, it doesn't say that. Endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights. So if evil exists, and we all know it does, we saw it 8 days ago, then God exists.
Well, and that is honestly the way that a lot of us were convinced of the reality of God was by being forced to acknowledge the reality of evil. I can say that for myself. My wife, who's like the person who keeps our family text chain grounded in the truth, sent a verse this morning that basically said that exact thing. And there are a number of them throughout both Old and New Testaments, as you know better than I, but that say that God will use evil for his purposes and that he will reveal himself through sadness as well as joy. And that is practically true. It's not even a theoretical concept. It's a living concept for those of us who concluded just on the basis of the evidence that these were not political differences, actually. These were not political phenomenon. These were a bunch of different things. I won't get specific, but you know what I'm talking about. This is the face of evil. And that brought us to the reality of God. It's like wild. That actually happened. It happened to me.
I want everybody to know, and I know, Blake, you've been contemplating this too, but Charlie was willing to give the very last measure of his effort in his life. He really was. And he said it multiple times. And I think the first time he said it on stage, it wasn't something that was planned. It came out of him naturally. And Erika heard it. And Erika was like, "You be careful when you say that, please." And that's really powerful. But he said it again and again. He said it on a Lance Wallnau show, I remember one time, saying like, and he was very aware of the story of Stephen. He was very well aware of the prophets, and he was very well aware that people wanted to hurt him, and it never stopped him. And I think we need to remember that when we think about evil, and we think about, because death, where is your victory? Oh, death, where is your sting? It's the last thing that, it's like you said, they meant it for evil, but the Lord is taking it and he's turning it to good and for the saving of many lives. And I always was caught by that wording in the scriptures, the saving of many lives. Obviously he's talking about the Israelites in that instance, but as we contemplate it for our own moment, the saving of many lives. And I think about all these baptisms and all these reports of the churches being overflowing and across the country. And we didn't riot, Tucker. We didn't burn businesses. We didn't tear down windows and doors. We prayed. And that is the biggest, most amazing testament to the character of Charlie Kirk.
Well, but it's also the nature of, or it has been my experience anyway. I'm not a theologian, but I just will say that I've had many moments, especially in the last 10 years, where, boy, you can feel it around you, like for real. You can feel the menace, you can feel the hate, you can feel the threat. It comes out of nowhere. I've had a couple pretty intense experiences with it, very intense. And they are followed invariably by the peace of God, by the Holy Spirit. And you know that God is using this moment for your benefit, your edification, and your joy. That is true, that out of tragedy, and it's such a cliche, and it's such a kind of syrupy, hallmark, false assurance on the surface that I hesitate even to say it, but I've just lived it so much. I've lived it so much. That is absolutely how God has communicated with me in my life, like directly, is by contrasting his presence with the evil that you feel around you. And so it is, in a weird way, in the middle of tragedy, like a true blessing. And if you see a loved one, we all go through this as we age. I've been through it a lot recently, where someone you really, really love dies. And then you're just filled with this sense of the presence of God that's absolutely real. You're not manufacturing it. It's not like a immune response or something. It's like a presence from outside coming into you. And I think the whole country feels it, or the people who are alive to it feel it now strongly.
In fact, the greatest evil of all time, the sacrifice of Jesus, has led to the greatest good.
Yes.
Without the sacrifice of Jesus, we'd all be dead in our sins. But Christ was sacrificed so that our punishment could be put on him. And when we trust in him, we're not only forgiven, but we're given his righteousness. There's a misunderstanding among some. They think in order to get to heaven, I got to be good. No. There's nobody good enough. Jesus said there's nobody good but one, and that was him. In order to get to heaven, you need to take his sacrifice and apply it to yourself. You need to take the punishment that went on him, and you trust in him to get that forgiveness because your punishment was put on him. And then by trusting in him, you're not only forgiven, you're given his righteousness. So good works are a result of Christianity, They're not the cause of Christianity. The cause of Christianity in someone's life is to trust in what Christ has done, and out of love for what Christ has done, then you'll do good works.
Well,
by the way, I'm really struck by a quote from Peter Kreft, who said this about what evil can do in our lives to help us become more like Christ. He said this. He said, "The point of our lives is not comfort, security, or even happiness, but training. Not fulfillment, but preparation. This world is a lousy home, but it's a fine gymnasium."
Well, Frank, I just want to say again, I know you've got to catch a flight here, so God bless you, my friend. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being such a rock in Charlie's life. I'll say it, you don't have to give them any heed. I'm sorry about the conspiracy theories, specifically around you and some of my other friends that were around the table. They are utter garbage, and we stand by you 100%, my friend. And just thank you for being just an amazing guy, and you meant so much to Charlie, and we'll see you in a few days.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, Tucker. Thank you, Blake.
Thanks, Frank.
God bless you guys.
So Charlie was very well aware of the existence of evil, obviously. So were us on his team. You know, by the way, just one other conspiracy theory I just want to snuff out here. One of our dear friends that literally from the very beginning started with us and loved Charlie like a brother, he grabbed the SD cards out of the camera afterwards. And there's all these conspiracy videos about, like, why did he grab the SD cards? Well, first of all, they're in the possession of the FBI. Okay. It's not like he took them and like ran off with them. Second of all, I asked him personally, I said, why did you do that? And he looked at me and this was his answer. He said, because I know people can be evil. And he did not want that footage being grabbed by somebody. There was videos of people after the incident going and stealing hats off the table. I mean, so I'm so grateful he did that, and that was his instinct. He's like, I'm depressed to know that was why I did that, but I knew that I had to protect that footage because I wanted, I mean, you know, you're recording in like 4K, you know? And so I'm so glad he did that. But Charlie knew the existence of evil. And
well,
so,
can I just say,
yeah.
I think that people can feel the existence of evil, and that, just to put in a sympathetic word for people who are trying to make sense of this and coming to the wrong conclusions, I think they're motivated, for the most part, by pure intent. I think they don't trust the authorities. They have every reason to feel that way. I know that for a fact. Not the Trump administration, in general. Like,
Yeah.
we're not, you know, there's been a lot of lying, and it's corroded the trust. That's not their fault, actually. They're the victims of it.
That's a good point. Thank you for saying that.
There are, of course, bad actors who are doing it for clicks or whatever, but I guess, but there are far more people who love Charlie. They loved what he stood for. They feel like he was murdered by evil. They're absolutely right. They're not sure what variety of evil. There's no authoritative person to tell them. So I guess I'm just not surprised at all. This is a message I've told to a lot of people. This is what happens when you lie too much and you hide too much. And going forward, I just want everybody with power to be honest in the way that Charlie was honest about themselves. That will do more than anything to fix this, to make people love each other and hear each other. And if people are honest, we got here because of lying. And the only antidote is truth. And so truth about yourself, not about other people. Stop talking about other people. Admit who you are. And once you do that, people can feel that. And they immediately, as they did with Charlie, they respond to it. They're like, I believe you because you're honest about you. Anyway, I want that.
Yeah, a buddy of mine just said something that I think is really profound. He said, two people, and I believe this about you too, Tucker, which is why you're so important, but two people could say the same thing. Just imagine Charlie Kirk, 30 million followers across social media, and somebody else also very prominent.
Yes.
And they would say the same thing, but when Charlie said it, it would echo and ripple across the world.
Yeah, because we're all animals, by the way. And so much of what we know, we receive non-verbally. We can smell each other. We can feel the vibe. I don't care if that sounds flaky. It's true. My dogs can do it, and so can you. And if a deceptive man is speaking, I don't believe what he says, even if it's factually accurate. And if an honest man is speaking, I know it. I can feel it. That's why everyone loves Blake, despite his eccentricities.
You're honest.
He is honest.
Yeah.
He's not a liar. And Charlie was the same. And we just know that. You can't dissuade me of that. I know that's true.
Let's go ahead and play cut 20. This is Charlie talking about the existence of evil revealing God's presence.
As Christians, ethical monotheists, we have the problem of evil. Atheists have evil no problem. On the atheist side, they can't say that evil actually exists because without God, if God does not exist, then we are nothing more than just a clump of cells, and there is no such thing as evil. You only know something is evil if you have good to compare it to. If I have a piece of paper and I draw a crooked line, how do you know this line is crooked? You immediately look at it, you say, that's a crooked, squiggly line. Only because in your mind, you know what a straight line is. If you don't believe in God, then you say evil's no problem. But if you are upset with it, you actually are implying that you believe in God. You might be angry at God. You might be wrestling with God. You might think that God is unjust. That's a completely different thing than not believing in God.
There's no one who doesn't believe in God. Everyone believes in God because the Spirit of God is within us because he made us. The divine spark exists whether you acknowledge it or not. So your options are three. Either you acknowledge it and try to live by it, you ignore it and numb yourself, or you rage against it. And so that would be the atheists, the agnostics, and the Christians in reverse order. And you can see them immediately. You know, the agnostics are numb, the atheists are enraged, and the Christians have peace. But you don't have any other options because it's just real. It pre-exists you, and every single person feels it.
Executive producer of the show, my good friend Blake Neff, another producer of the show, and of course, the great, good friend, wonderful man. Honestly, Tucker, thank you so much for making the time.
My honor.
By the
Are
way,
you
everything we've asked of you, you just said, whatever I could do. Yes, I'll clear my schedule. Yes, absolutely. And that's just how you are, and I love that about you.
Well, I want to get on the road. I mean, my favorite thing that Charlie did in his professional life was get out and physically speak to people in their physical presence. I think that's so important. I love the internet, I guess. Pretend to love the internet. I hate it. But mostly I love being with people physically and smelling them. And he was like the last person who really loved that. And he got murdered. And I grieve his death, of course. But I also am really concerned that that whole thing will die.
Yeah.
Like, it's so important to be there physically. Like, ask me anything in my physical presence. And so I'm doing that for you guys. I'll do as much as you want because I just really believe in that.
Well, we were going to save that for Monday, but so they announced it.
I'm not much of a planner.
But yeah. So,
I'm
breaking
just saying,
news.
if you guys want me to go out there, I will do it.
Yeah, breaking news here. Tucker Carlson will be a part of continuing Charlie's legacy by touring with us.
Wherever you want.
It'll be at least one stop. We'll say it like that.
During grouse season. And so that's like the ultimate expression of love. Talk about laying down your life. I love grouse season.
You know, take up your cross daily. So I want to pivot this conversation to Charlie's wife.
Yes.
Erika Kirk. And I joked yesterday, on Thought Crime, I got a little, you guys razzed me about it, but I was quoting Blake, and because it came out, it was just this like amazing thing, and I should know better than to air private conversations publicly, but Erika was referenced, and Blake just goes, "What a woman."
Dude, she's unbelievable.
She's amazing.
I was in Phoenix, flying to Phoenix for something else, and Charlie texted me on the plane and said, I heard you're coming to Phoenix because he knew everybody. I was like, how do you know that? He goes, do you have time for lunch? Yes. I had nothing to do with him. Was not here for Turning Point at all. And so I meet him at lunch with his girlfriend, Erika, and he wants me to introduce me to her. And I called Susie, my wife, after, and I was like, because my longstanding view has been, you know, it's critical. Like, I really believe in marriage, but not for like syrupy reasons. Like, I think it really matters. I was like, that chick is a star. I mean, she was just like, no, this is what's true. And that's not true. I mean, she is, tough is not exactly the right word because it's from love. It's from Christian faith. It's from faith in Jesus. But it like, oh man.
It emanates from her.
Oh my gosh. Unwavering.
And you want to know a crazy,
I love that.
You want to know a crazy thing I just realized last night? So Andrew Breitbart dies in 2012.
March 1st.
That inspires Charlie Kirk to start Turning Point USA in 2012. Guess what else happened in 2012? And we talk about people getting prepared and these little like nuggets that you think about. I just realized this. Erika Kirk won Miss Arizona in 2012. and hung out with Donald Trump in 2012 because of that.
I know.
And so I don't know. There are no coincidences, and but you can just see how God was preparing them, and Erika as well. Erika grew up with a single mom,
Yeah.
and so obviously, you wanted Charlie's kids to know their father in a deep and profound personal way, but Erika is uniquely, even in the midst of that tragedy, is uniquely able to navigate that, even just conceptually and emotionally. Something I've talked to her about, and it's powerful even hearing her as she's working these pieces out. And I don't want to share too much privately, so they said this publicly, and I just love it. And I shared this on Twitter X the other day, and it went viral. So let's go ahead and play cut 19, one of my favorite interactions between Charlie and Erika.
My wife joins us, Erika Kirk,
Hi,
the beautiful,
everyone.
legendary Erika.
I love you so much.
I love you.
You're my best friend.
Welcome to the Charlie Kirk Show. We have asked the audience for questions. You pick one.
Who is more conservative and why?
Erika,
Yes.
by far. Not even close. I am a moderate compared to Erika.
Andrew always jokes that once you got married to me, you got more based.
That's true. That is true. No, Erika is very conservative. Do you
So.
think having kids made you more conservative?
100%. Which I didn't think was possible. But 100%. Absolutely.
And do you
And a
think,
better wife.
Boy, that's the realest thing ever. It's hard to talk about your marriage because no one believes you. But of course, because it's your wife. You can't say anything bad. But I just know for a fact that that's true.
It's really true.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, I should note, because I can't control myself, that there was a picture of them in Maine, which they loved. That makes me sad.
Yeah. Well, Charlie was bad at vacations.
Yeah, terrible at vacation.
So he was in Maine this summer on vacation, and I just loved how it kept okay, Fox and Friends wants me to guest, so we're going to take the weekend, like the best days of the vacation, where he could actually maybe, and Erika was just totally game for it. She was like, cool, let's go to New York. That's
No,
fine.
they came to my house, and he's like, I want to buy a house here. I was like, oh, you got to. The state needs you. It's good. And I'm sorry that they didn't, but
It's just been amazing to hear her talk about, not just their relationship, but how they both viewed marriage. And we were saying the last exchange I had with Charlie by text message just on the way to the event, he was
I was on
Blake,
that text,
what are the best arguments for monogamy? And it gets back to that, the Christian civilization stuff we talked about, because he loved all the takes I'd give him, where I'm like, Christian marriage is in the Bible, but it's also this secret weapon that made the West great, and countries that follow Christian marriage, they're amazing, they excel, they improve, they get better, they have
is true.
harmony between men and women far more than any other civilization. He loved all of that, and so I was rattling all that off, and I think the last thing I got from him is he hearted a list that I posted, and then 10 minutes later he was on the stage.
Yeah,
And-
that was those. I've looked back at those because I was on that text chain and I was chiming in, and they were the last texts that I exchanged with them too, and it was 30 minutes before it happened, and we were talking about marriage.
that is
And
wild.
when
So
they
fitting.
talk about, hearing Erika talk about it, where she'll say stuff that sounds unbelievable to you. She's like, people would ask me, did you get mad at Charlie because he traveled so much and was doing so many things? And she's like, no, I didn't. And it was because we were on the same team. We were on the same mission. And I would have never wanted to in any way be hindering from him executing God's mission. And he would have never wanted to fail in any way in me executing the mission God gave me.
But but when he was present, he practiced Shabbat not because he's Jewish, but because he needed sort of a discipline to follow. And so from sundown on Friday, really all of Saturday, it was he was off. You couldn't call him, you couldn't get a hold of him. I mean, there was ways if an emergency happened that I could get a hold of him.
And it was legit.
But it
because
was legit.
You'd see the wave of him reading the things you sent on Friday night or Saturday
then he'd
morning,
start
and finally reacting
blowing you
to
up
them
on Sunday when I'm trying to go to church. All of a sudden, Charlie's back on, and it was just but he gave that time so purely and fully to his wife and kids, and Erika absorbed every moment of that. And I told this story yesterday, and I do want to clarify something, because apparently people took it the wrong way. But the night it happened, she got a call from a very important person. And that very important person, I'm not going to say who, it maybe isn't who you think, but it's a very important person, but asked, like, I just have to ask, like, what do you know? And he wasn't talking about some conspiracy theory. They hadn't even got the shooter at this point. And
It's a fair question.
He was asking, what do you know about Turning Point? What do you know about what Charlie was doing politically? What do you know about the donors? What do you know? Like, what are we working? What's our starting point here? And she said back, I know everything.
Thank God.
Because Charlie they would walk and they would talk and they would religiously, they would walk. Because Charlie hurt his back. He couldn't run anymore. He used to run like 7 to 10 miles a day. When I first started working with Charlie, he would just be gone running. And he hurt his back. He couldn't do it. So they would walk together. And if you ever walked with Charlie, the guy could keep a pace. The guy, big, long legs. And they would talk and they would lay in bed and they would talk. And she was his vault. And she knows everything.
She has the same spirit. So when that was announced, or I heard that she was taking over, I was just elated. It's not an attack on anyone else, by the way, or a reference to any of the internecine battles currently going on, which I'm trying to not think about. It's just the fact, the provable fact that she had the same spirit and the same goals, the same mission that he had. That is just true.
Just more based.
I just want it without, whatever, but getting into it, but I just want to affirm that. I just saw that recently yet again. And I'm just so thankful that she's taking over because it's a big deal. I saw Trump on Monday. He said, I couldn't got elected without Charlie Kirk. And he's not prone to say things like that. He meant it.
Wow.
Yeah.
JD said the same thing with Jesse, and I know JD feels that. And, it's just been amazing, too, to see Washington, the power center, the imperial capital, as Charlie always used to say. By the way, Charlie hated going to Washington, hated it. He loved being out here in Phoenix, thought it was like our secret weapon. Well, besides you being the secret weapon, it was our secret weapon to be outside of that bubble. And yet somehow all of Washington is coming to him.
Can I say one thing? I shouldn't even get involved in this, but it's a fact, so I want to say it. He loved J.D. Vance. He loved Donald Trump, of course, often said it, but he really loved
the
J.D.
stuff he would talk about in private, and some of that would bubble out. He loved telling the story of the first time he endorsed him for office. And in case people haven't heard it, it's such a great story where Vance has announced he's running in Ohio for Senate, and it's a very long shot bid at this point. I think he polled at 2 or 3%.
Yeah,
he comes in, he meets Charlie, he talks to Tyler too, and they come out and they're like, he said everything we believe. Like we've got to endorse him. Like if we're not going to endorse this guy, why are we even here?
Yeah, exactly.
And they're basically like, they make that commit, and there's a miscommunication because it's a big open Senate, it's a big Senate race. And Charlie's got to call a lot of donors and, explain why we're doing this. We're not going for your guy. This isn't a slight on you. Manage all the.
And the other guy was their guy for
and
sure.
instead, there's a miscommunication, and it just goes out like blast. Turning Point is endorsing J.D. Vance, and it goes out way too early. And he's like, well, we all believe it. And he's just like, J.D. Vance is amazing.
And by the way, that you're part of that story because he saw J.D. on your show, and was like. At that point, he didn't know all the little deep things that he believed, and he kept. Like I remember him saying, "JD's got like something. There's something about JD. He's got
that is exactly.
He's got the goods." And before you explain why,
I'm not going to get involved in this.
No.
But
I
just saying he loved
JD.
Yeah.
He loved. And by the way, JD loved him, and I think you can see that. Do you want to put a cap on that? I know you have a story to tell.
Well, I just want to. I don't think I can emphasize it enough. And again, I'm really going to try because I think the point of Charlie's life was following Jesus. I just want to say that again, as someone who knew him well. I think the point of his life was following Jesus. So I really want to be helpful to that mission and not get distracted with the other stuff. And I have distracted with the other stuff for sure because I feel strongly about it. But I'm going to try and stop. But I just want to say, if you want to understand Charlie Kirk, he loved J.D. Vance and Donald Trump, but he was genuinely close to J.D. like as a friend. and vice versa. And that is just factually true. And I don't want to hurt anybody by going on, but that is true.
And JD earned every
Yes, he
ounce of
did.
that. And
Yeah,
you have
he
a story
loved
for
the
that.
story, and it really meant a lot to him. So we had that event in
It was in June in Detroit last
in
year.
Detroit, the People's Convention, we called it. I assume that was like
It was pre him getting announced as VP, and they were just starting to kind of like float his name out there.
yeah, and which Charlie, of course, very much wanted to do, and he used all of his political talents to try to promote that. And one of those things is, invite him to the convention. And what he always loved about it was, I think it was his anniversary, either the day before or the day after. And so
No, it was the day before because we wanted him on Saturday night to be sort of the final speaker on Saturday night, and he said,
and
"I
Charlie would
can't.
love that." He's like, "It's my anniversary."
I can't.
He would say, "Marriage
I
comes
have
first."
to be with my wife, but I will commit to getting there on Sunday." And Charlie was like, "Great, you can be the final speaker of the event," and that gave him just enough time to get
to literally just drive up there, which I believe he personally himself drive the
personally
car,
drove.
and he gets there, and we're used to a lot of people having entourages, and he just shows up. I think he had one aide with him.
This is JD.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And he just walks in. It's just like,
Will,
hey,
Will was with him.
I'm JD
Yeah.
Vance. I'm a speaker. I think maybe some security guy didn't initially recognize him.
No, there's just JD Vance walking by himself backstage. I was like, I think that's
Where do you need
JD.
me?
Like, he's just kind of like strolling in, and we found out he drove. He's like, oh yeah, it was just it was
There's
like,
never been a less affected politician. I always promise myself I'm not going to compliment JD Vance in public because I don't want to hurt him. But there's never been a less affected leader ever, like period.
I totally agree. I've never seen one if there is.
No.
But yeah, Charlie. People would ask Charlie a lot. Are you going to run for president? Are you going to run for office? Or and he would always. You will not find one piece of content anywhere ever. It doesn't exist. Where he said, yeah, you know what, I want to be president someday. He would always say, I love what I'm doing. Like, God's called me here. We have more impact here, and that was all very true. Privately, I had that conversation with him, and I wouldn't say he answered it with me, although that maybe there were some other instances where I caught an inclination. But what he said was, JD's ready. And because JD's running, I don't even have to think about it. And I don't know if that's I don't know if he said, let me say, because JD exists, we're going to do everything we can. He didn't say that he, had confirmed or anything, but because JD exists, I don't even have to think about it. And Charlie, was such a champion of JD's political talents and his future. And if JD does decide to do that, certainly Charlie would cheer him on from the hereafter. But Charlie has a lot of faith in JD Vance.
I always
no
loved
doubt.
his frankness on just topics like that. In the 2024 primaries, he would just come out and he's like, "Well, I promised Trump that if he ran again in 24, I would support him." And so that was that. Like, I made a promise.
Yeah. And if JD chooses to do that, then God bless him, and I would be here to cheer him on. We have our final radio segment of the day.
Are you serious?
It goes fast.
That went
doesn't it?
fast, yeah.
But I have this great clip of Charlie that we're going to play. Play cut 2. This is Charlie talking about his lovely wife, Erika.
My wife is the best person ever, and she's a patriot, and she's a believer, and we don't want to have to be accountable to God when this life passes. And he asks, why did you not trust in me and not fight evil? Because we as Christians are called to fight evil. It's one of the lesser known scriptures, Psalm 97:10. For those of you that love God, you must hate evil.
Yep, amen.
And again, everyone is called to something different in the body of Christ. Some people are called to heal the sick. Some people are called to mend broken marriages. Some people are called to do outright hot gospel teaching. My call is to fight evil and to proclaim truth. That's it.
Who has that clarity of purpose, at that age? It's such a rare gift. I think it is a gift. It's not detracting from the choices that he made, but he knew what his purpose on this earth was. He worked tirelessly to fulfill that. Tirelessly. I can't overstate that. As someone with a similar gig, I've never seen a man work harder and with greater self-sacrifice, with greater self-discipline. And it all flowed from his belief that this is not pointless. There's a race that we have to run. And he left us in mid-stride. I thought that night, and I was heartbroken and struggling even now to control myself. Excuse me. But I had that image that day. I was on a plane when it happened, of him going like that, leaving this earth in that position in mid-stride. And that is, as tragic and overwhelming as it is, that is such a gift. Like, may that be the end of my life too, and all of our lives, to leave in midst of purpose, in midst of forward motion. Very few people get that. And, in this case at 31, it's unimaginable. However, that is something that I know that I want. And I think that every person who thinks about it wants that too. And so I'm grateful for that.
Well, you have a special place in the Turning Point family, Tucker. I know you know that. You had a special place in Charlie's heart. And I just want to address one thing before we go here. We've got like two and a half minutes left. That there was pressure put on Charlie, about you appearing at Turning Point.
Oh, you think?
And
he's such a Scot about it, so he's just like, they're putting pressure on me, so I've got to double down.
Yeah, he was like, some of the funny text messages that we found since then. He goes, "Oh, they don't want me to have Tucker. Oh, maybe I'll have him speak twice." And he just
he
loved
sent those
you.
to me.
Yeah, he just loved you, and there was, and that was the hardest thing to explain to people that maybe didn't like your views on foreign policy or whatever.
Didn't like my views on foreign policy.
I'm trying to be diplomatic here, Tucker.
I thought I should
embrace it.
put in
Embrace
prison.
it.
Yeah,
embrace it. Embrace it. But I just, Charlie. This was the hardest thing to explain. Is that, like, guys, you don't understand. Like, Charlie's mission is 3 steps down. He's keeping a coalition together. He's keeping friends together. He's keeping networks together. He's a statesman, and he's not going to knee jerk and be morally blackmailed by anybody. And if you do it, he will double down. You saw it in that clip. My mission is to confront evil.
Oh yes,
and to proclaim the truth
wherever it is. Yes.
And I would just tell people, listen, you might think one thing, fine. But Charlie and Tucker are deeply, deeply, on a very personal level, friends, and Charlie is loyal.
Oh yeah.
And if you go down this route, don't be surprised when you have Tucker having 3 speeches on 3 different nights at Amfest.
When I was a kid, in high school, I drove my car into a white pine in Maine, going about 40, and I remember thinking it totaled the car. And I remember thinking, wow, the tree just doesn't move. It doesn't matter how hard you hit it. And that was Charlie. He was just a towering white pine man. He was just not, it didn't matter how hard you hit him. He just wasn't moving. There's few things I respect more than that.
Well, Tucker, it's been a pleasure. One of my favorite shows. And I think it was so fitting that you capped off the week. And I know you're going to be speaking at his celebration.
About Jesus, not politics, to be clear. And I'm so glad that we could take some time to talk about Jesus, not politics, because that's the whole point.
Well, it's funny. When I first started being around you, the way you would talk about faith was much more reticent and reserved. And Charlie has made a convert out of you, and you are proclaiming the truth as well as any preacher I've ever heard. So thank you, Tucker Carlson.
Thank you very much.
May God bless you.
God bless
May
you.
God bless the reach of your word.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Talk to you soon.